Love that
Welcome.
background.
Thank you. Welcome back to another episode of A Warrior Spirit, where the inner warrior shines in their light. Today I have Kelsie Siegel. She is a limitless warrior of intuitive action, and I appreciate your time tonight, Kelsie. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me, Daryl. It's
Um,
wonderful to be had.
we are entering into a new year, 2024. And you mentioned that your word is limitless. Um, is there parts of you in the past, and I also know that you are stepping more into your courageous vulnerability side. Is there a part of your history where you weren't quite as bold or brave, or you kind of held yourself back?
Definitely, definitely. And that's all around realizing that I just wasn't loving myself enough. So I didn't allow my magic to be seen or even own it at many times, many times.
So oftentimes when we are people who don't love ourselves enough, and I'm speaking from personal experience on this side as well, oftentimes it stems from something in our past trauma-wise that really set a false belief that now has become the narrative that we live. Did you
Yeah.
experience that as well?
Yes, absolutely. Yes. You know, not on purpose. Everyone does their best. I like to say that everyone is doing their best, but yes, through many different relationships, growing up and just different interactions with people who I thought were friends, especially that wonderful 5th and 6th grade era that we all
Hmm.
have so many wonderful stories about.
Hmm.
I think is a huge transition time for kids growing up. And um, I was homeschooled in and out. So I would be homeschooled, and then 2 years later, I'd go into private school. It seemed like every 2 years we'd switch from homeschool to private school to homeschool to private school. And so I had very interesting um, kind of grade school flow and
Hmm.
experience. Um, so I wasn't in public school, but some would argue that private school is a little more intense than public school at times.
Yeah,
um,
well, and so is homeschooling if you couple that. I mean, it's, in public school, you have bullies by nature. In
mhm,
private school, you have bullies by class status, and
yes,
they're where they deem they are in the ladder. And at homeschool, you may or may not like the teacher. I don't know.
yes, yeah, yes. And we also visited various different churches and different Bible groups and prayer groups, and just had a lot going on in general. Moved what felt like across the world was across town as a kid.
Mm, mhm.
So change in general can be traumatizing for a kid
Sure.
if too many changes happen at once. And so there were a few times in my life where we changed churches and we changed homes and we moved across town, and we also changed school and we changed our faith practices all at the same time. And
Mm,
so that can create unpredictability. And so moving schools, I think, every 2 years just worked out that way. Created that feeling of vulnerability and unpredictability and just not just insecurity. And you know, my parents were learning. They were doing what their parents taught them to do.
mhm.
And they were doing all that they knew to do in reaction to one another and
Yeah.
each other's parents
Yeah.
and each other's upbringing. And so, of course, there were arguments and there were disagreements, and they didn't have the blessing of the awareness we're gaining now about mental health and emotional intelligence and accountability and just clearing your mind and the importance of self-care and loving
Were
yourself. And so
were your parents younger or older?
my parents were 22 and 23.
Okay, so that's the age that a lot my parents were as well. And as I've explored my own trauma and overcome my own things, this last year has been my own alchemist journey. But I find now at my age, um, thinking back to what life was like as a person their age, in their
Yeah.
20s,
Yeah.
and what tools they didn't have in their toolbox.
Yeah.
Yes, I've had to overcome the trauma that was inflicted upon me, but I've also had to gain an understanding of where they were when they inflicted that trauma.
Mhm. Mhm.
So it's
Mhm.
allowed me to be a little more forgiving
Mhm.
in that vein. Do you find, now you're still fairly young, but you've started to go through your own healing journey.
Yeah.
Do you find that you are gaining more understanding of what they were doing or what they were trying to do, or?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I see more and more now that they were loving in their own way. They were showing love in their own way that they knew how or that they were shown and still do, and that everyone shows how they care in a different way. And sometimes, usually, it's connected to their fears,
Mhm.
you know, if they haven't had the chance to really heal and and really know who they are and how powerful they are and how big of an impact they make and how love can be unconditional
Mhm.
and
I
what
don't,
that can look like.
yeah, I don't find that a lot of our parents and grandparents were given as much opportunity to heal as we and our children are given.
Yeah.
The healing nature in of itself, or even talking about mental health or mental awareness or whatever else, was
Yeah.
so taboo, and so not talked about. You just kind
Mhm.
of buried it, and then you
Mhm.
inflicted it upon, the next
Mhm.
generation.
Mhm.
So, I know you have children of your own. May I ask
Mhm.
how many?
I have one daughter, and she's 4 years old.
Okay. So, and I can presume that you're finding a different way to show love to her than was
Yes.
shown to you, right?
Yeah. Yes. Yes, um, and ways not to show love.
Right.
So, the contrast and and the light,
Yeah.
both. And, what was I gonna say? Forgiveness of oneself
It's huge.
really, 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 really is, I think, probably the first necessary step in transformation.
Yeah,
And
we definitely pile on ourselves. And I tell this to my wife all the time. You need to put Thor's hammer away, right? You don't
Mhm.
need to, constantly, that's the one voice in your head you don't need to listen to, is the one that's
Mhm.
always downgrading who you are or what you should be,
Yeah.
in that light.
Mhm.
A few minutes ago, you mentioned transitioning religion.
Mhm.
May I ask where it started and where it went, or where it transitioned
Yeah.
to?
Yeah, absolutely, sure. So, growing up until all the way until I was 15, we were in the church, non-denominational, very spiritual, holy rolling Christians. Had very strong faith and practice with, the Holy Spirit and the gifts of the Spirit, and would go and were part of apostolic churches, and would go
Mhm.
and see prophets, and they would have they had a healing ministry, and there were churches who and pastors who were gifted and specialized in the exorcising of evil spirits and all those things like that. And it was very intense. And there was a lot of don't do this, don't do that, don't do this, condition, condition, condition.
Mhm.
And, well, you're hurting God's feelings, and God doesn't like this that you're doing. And just the shame and guilt that comes with
Mhm.
religion, with
Mhm.
man-made um, you know, systems and congregation and things like that, authority placement and things like that. And then when I turned 15, our last name is Siegel. And so my one of my dad's business partners asked him, oh, do you guys keep Shabbat? He said, what is Shabbat? What do you mean? He said, well, you're Jewish, aren't you? Like your last name is Siegel. And he said, no, I'm Sicilian. 50% at least. And so hence the nose. Uh, and so we had no idea. And so he looked into it and sure enough, talked to his father and found out that we are Russian, Polish, Jewish descent.
Oh,
And
wow.
so started looking into that and then decided for the family that we were going to start observing all of the Jewish traditions and holidays and everything. And really started looking at the Christian holidays and seeing them as more of from a pagan light. And so we completely left the church, completely stopped all Easter and Christmas and everything that could possibly be touched with a 10-foot pole of paganism, and went completely Messianic Judaism,
Mhm.
practicing Messianic Judaism and kosher eating, Torah observant, Jesus Jews, basically. And so just all in. And so that's where my family has been at, for since, gosh, what was that? 2010. So 14 years.
Mhm.
I guess that would be half my life. So half my life in church and half my life in the Torah out and as the black sheep of the Bible Belt
Right.
until recently. So that was quite um, a turn upside down, of our life to leave the circle and the community that I had grown up in, and even to be homeschooled by someone new who was part of this new community. And we moved into a new home. And so everything, family, friends, core, beliefs, holidays, all changed with over a summer.
And for a 15-year-old, especially, Mean Girls is real.
Yes.
It's a very tumultuous time for young
Yeah.
girls anyway, to
Hmm.
totally flip and then embrace another um, life that is also, um, what's the word I'm looking for? Uh, Shoot, I hate it because I'm a wordsmith, and to lose the word and just is annoying. But
So good.
um, yeah, but when you're
Immersive.
already in a minority, you're
Mm,
already in a sect that is
a niche.
neat. Yes, yeah, and
Mhm.
now you're transitioning into another sect that also gets discriminated against, and all of that. I mean, how did that really affect you as a 15-year-old? Because you're on the cusp of having your own thoughts and feelings and ideas of it, but not
Yeah.
on the cusp of be able to fully express them
Hmm.
without consequence.
Yeah.
So how did that time frame work
Yeah.
for you?
Well, for me, everything that could have potentially been traumatizing, permanently damaging in my life, it has actually driven me closer to the spirit, to the divine, to just say, okay, it's you and I, me and you. So let's do this. What you got for me? There must be something good here. There must be something you're telling me or showing me or teaching me or loving me with somehow. Did it start out that way? Absolutely not. I was angry. I did not understand. It was too fast. Um, you know, felt ignored and abandoned at moments and dismissed and all those emotions and feelings and everything. And um my parents were still working on their relationship and communicating and getting on the same page, uh and the work that goes into that. um and so and then just the whole mindsets playing in the background, from growing up, from my grandparents down to my parents. What the role of a husband is and what the role of a wife is, and that the women, Proverbs 31 woman is submitting to your husband and doing, what your husband says, and that he's lord over you. And those mindsets and things like that, those religious, biblical mindsets.
Hmm.
Um and unconditional love really got lost in all of that, and now it's infusing itself back into my life.
So there has to be a tipping point and a turning point,
Oh, sorry.
because we don't go
Sorry.
180 to 180. We don't, I mean, you did. I've always said that religion is the worst thing that happened to God. And
Yeah.
you were in two very limiting sects sects of religion that really were stifling. So for you to embrace spirit and the divine and God and the essence of the holiness, there had to be something powerful or someone powerful in your life to help keep you on track like that.
Yes,
What was that?
absolutely. I absolutely have had blessed to have key people placed in my life. And um so whenever we were in um church, there was this couple, there were several people. Vanessa Carr was one of them. And she was there for me and my mother and several of my friends in a group, and we would have dances together. And she would just remind us that, that God loves us constantly and encourage us to stay positive. There was also a couple that were mentors to my parents, Chuck and Mary Williams, and they were just divine. So sweet. They were like grandparents, and they were always so welcoming and loving and generous and kind, and had us in their home for Bible studies, and would just give us those enveloping hugs, and just tell us that we're made perfect, in the image of God, and always reminds me. And Paul Gay and Paul Peresky were the couple that were sent to us, sent to me in my life. Uh, in my teenage years. And they really took me in under their wing and reminded me that God's love is unconditional and that I'm made in his image and that they accept me just the way that I am. And really were extremely generous and servant hearts, of that unconditional love to me and my family. And all of these people, their door was open to their home, to anyone to come and be loved and welcomed and fed, not only in, your stomach, but your soul too, just that acceptance and that positivity and faith and hope and love, these three things.
Yeah, these three things. I think we all who have survived trauma or moved past it can look back to a few handful of outside the family people who, without their grace and love, we probably wouldn't have turned out, for the
Yes,
positive that we did.
yeah,
Some of us
and
might not even be here if it weren't for those type of individuals in our life.
yeah,
Um, so it's funny because we are in these indoctrinating institutions, but it's the people who actually embody the essence of what's supposed to be taught that really have the more impact in our life than the
yes,
indoctrinating institutions.
yes, yes.
So you're working or have worked through your self-love, right? You're now accepting
Mhm,
of yourself, and you're
mhm.
embracing the beauty of who you are and the light that shines within you, right?
It's a journey. Yes.
Always a journey. It's never a destination. That's always a
Yes,
journey.
yes, yes. More aware,
So,
and I wanted to add another person, if I may,
oh,
that
sure, absolutely. Yeah, go ahead.
is not least and is not last. Novella Williams is the most recent mentor that's come into my life, and it's funny because the people that were in there for really there for me as a rock whenever we were in church. They were from the very classic Baptist, you know, community. And then when we started observing Judaism, they're very, very steeped in the traditions of Judaism and the people of Israel and the Jewish identity. And then now my most recent mentor is a Buddhist and just very steeped in oneness, just the oneness
Mhm,
of the
mhm.
divine, and that we're all connected. And I can appreciate and see the beauty and the clarity and the truth in all of it.
Yep. We spoke a little bit earlier before we started rolling the cameras about uh, affirm, not just the limiting beliefs, but the laws of attraction and
Yes.
the manifestation part. And I've been in this field for a very long time, and I've been in coaching for longer than you've been around. But um, but whenever and I consider myself, a Reformed Catholic. As a matter of fact, one of my dear friends, she keeps saying, I'll pray for you to come back, and I'm like, I do, I do, I do well with God and nature and find the oneness in the spirit, like you were just talking about. But
Yes.
anytime that we are talking about laws of attraction and mindset and things like that, you can, if you want to, directly relate them right back to biblical passage. You know,
Yes.
so
Definitely.
it's funny to me that people think of those of us who speak and talk like that as being like woo,
Hmm.
whereas if they really looked at the essence of what they're saying, it is actually taught by the word of God in the Bible.
Hmm.
We
Hmm.
just say it a little differently to take out the
Hmm.
religious man-made part of it,
Yes.
right?
Yes. Very true.
So
Nail on the head.
are you finding that the more you are thinking of the oneness and um, the laws of attraction and the mindset and the spirituality of it, the more peace and calm you find within your life?
Perfectly. Yes. Absolutely. Um, I have recently been reading a book by Florence Scovel Shinn, called The Game of Life and How to Play It. And I'm just noticing how about every 7 or 8 years, something happens and I'm drawn back to this awareness of my relationship with the divine,
Mhm.
how it is there always, and how it is simple and clear and true and steadfast and peaceful,
It's
free.
interesting that you say the 7 year thing because, and it's another reason why people, oh, the 7 year itch. But scientifically, we regenerate our whole body every 7 years. So you're an entirely new being every 7 years, and so you're being drawn back that of which
Yeah.
bringing that piece back with you for the new being of who you are.
Yes,
Um,
we're on the same
and
page.
I I follow a lot of Dr. Joe Dispenza,
Same.
and Joe. The reason I love Joe is because he is very metaphysical,
Yes.
but he's also a scientist. So he brings it back to the science of the metaphysics. So
Yes.
again, it's not the woo, it's the actual science of what we speak.
Yes.
And, you were talking about quantum physics
Hmm.
and quantum time and things of that. There are realms beyond which we can see because our
Yeah.
eyes are only capable of certain frequencies.
Hmm.
So if you allow your spirit and your soul to then start seeing it, your vision is much grander.
Yes.
You understand
Yeah.
what I'm saying?
Yes, I do. Yes.
And how are you using that now as a 30-year-old mom of a 4-year-old? How are you using that new enlightenment and that new way of thinking in your own world today?
Yes. So I used to be told the theme of my life has been, just have faith, just calm down, just calm down, be patient, have faith. I was always told that, well, I have faith, what do you mean have faith? I have faith. I know God's there. I know, this whole I know thing.
Mhm.
And recently, in the last few years, and especially with my most recent mentor, she has taught me that it's okay to not know. Actually, it's better to not know because then you're open to all possibilities.
Mhm.
And so there's this place where I don't have to know and I can just relax into the unknown and be in an uncomfortable zone of the unknown where everything is possible,
Mhm.
where it is all connected and it is all happening at the same time. And so, this faith aspect, I really didn't start understanding what it meant to have faith until recently when I started looking into the science of it all and frequencies and vibration and
Mhm.
tones and colors and you know, God forbid, chakras. I mean, for heaven's sake. um,
Right.
it's part of us. It's part of who we are. We're energetic beings. And so really getting into studying Kabbalah and um quantum physics and metaphysics and energy and looking into Reiki and the science of quantum physics and the way that the different layers and levels of energy integrate and how they operate in our bodies through our nervous system and our brain, from our psychic abilities to thought, and then from thought into electric shocks, to then into chemicals, which then turn into feelings in our body, which then turn into muscle contraction, which turns into action and moves into the physical realm where we live and breathe and create and dance with other people based on that which we choose to accept into our mind and believe and allow. And so then I started realizing, well, there's laws of the universe. And I've been studying these laws of the Torah and of the Bible, these 613 mitzvah commandments and laws. And it says to have faith in that and to trust the divine, that everything is always working out perfectly for our good. And now, because of what I've studied through science and all of this, I'm realizing that faith is knowing that law is law and it's not going anywhere. It is. It is. I am. It is. I am that I am. And I can know that. And I can know and trust that in the presence and the goodness of the divine, working out everything for my perfect good, for life. Everything is for the encouragement and expansion of life.
I think that's a beautiful explanation of what it means to be faithful, because if we know, there's no reason to be faithful. Faithful is the unknowing part of it. I often use the illustration with my clients. There's a reason your car headlights only shine 200 feet in front of you. You don't need to see the entire road to get to where you're going. The road reveals itself as you're coming upon it. And it's the same with the faith. If you already know, well, then you're not really being faithful. But if you know, then you already have a preconceived notion of what that package is supposed to look like. So something good may come your way packaged differently. And if you have faith to accept that, you will. If you don't, you already have a preconceived idea, you'll bypass it. And what could have been your greater good, you just left aside because your vision, you thought, was greater than the divines or spirit or universe.
Yeah. Yes.
I'm going to later this year, as I get closer to my own birthday, share my alchemist journey. But part of what I've learned and discovered through my entire life is that what we think is our oasis is really just a truck stop to the next destination. Right?
I like that. That's a great analogy.
I mean, that's how God and the universe work. Because if they took you,
Here's crumbs.
Yeah, they lead you to what you think is, what your greater good, and that's just the beginning of the trailhead to get you to where they're really wanting to take you. So I think it's beautiful that you have embraced that faithful part, even amongst having experienced different religions, because that can taint a person, and it hasn't tainted you. So as you continue down that path, what are you going to do with it next?
Which part? What do you mean?
Your limitless possibilities and your divine that you're embracing. Where is that taking Kelsie next?
I am choosing to be a human being instead of a human doing. So what that might look like is, instead of going out and trying to analyze what would be the most practical, realistic thing for me to do in today's economy,
Mhm.
I get to relax and allow the intuitive leads to be shown to me, that I may realize what is perfect. Uh, and recently, I discovered this, what's called the perfect square of life, through reading that book, A Game of Life and How to Play It. And I've read it 4 times in the last 5 days. So I'm really kind of obsessed at the moment. um, Words of life are in many books than just the 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 main books that are referred to in church and things of that nature. Words of life are everywhere. And so I have found words of life in this recent book. And the square of life is perfect health, wealth, love, and self expression. And so I usually affirm something along the lines of, I am one with God and my goodness. Therefore, I am successful. I am victorious. I am harmonious. And I'll affirm things like, I create freedom. I create life. I create um, inspiration.
Mhm.
I'll always say things, affirm every day at some point in the day. If I don't get to it in the morning, I'm divinely guided. I'm divinely protected. I'm divinely inspired. I'm divinely creative. And so, with the addition of this square of life, I've been adding in that I am complete and my life is in perfect, divine, right order
Mhm.
for my health and my wealth and love and perfect self expression. And just physically and mentally opening my heart to be receptive to noticing that and realizing that. And I recently changed from saying that I realize the very best that life has to offer to saying I appreciate all that life has to offer. So that
Mhm.
no matter where I am or what I'm doing or who I'm with or what's going on that day, I I choose to be appreciative of all of it.
And you
And through
should, because it makes who you are, right?
yeah,
W- I've my story has been told before, so people who've watched know, I used to be homeless. I used to sell blood for gas money and live out of my car and things of that nature. And when we're in the middle of our shit, we don't say, "Hey, thank you, universe."
right?
We
Right?
try to find our way out of it. But
Right.
then years later, we look back and
Yeah.
go, those are the elements that really strengthen me the most to be
Yeah.
able to do what I'm doing today
Mhm.
the best.
Mhm.
So having appreciation for all of life, I think, is a
Yeah.
very um, poignant idea that everyone should really embrace because my wife has been sick for 9 years and we have not, said, "Hey, thank you for the 9 years of pain and suffering." But
Yeah.
she has found a closer connection to God through it. And because of it, and because of her illness, she's been able to save other people and help other people not go through what she's had to go through.
Yeah.
So, um, yeah, there is divine purpose in all of it. I love that you're already in tune with that. Um, so and it's at such a young age, that's so fantastic and amazing. Um, you expressed that you are going to start embracing more of your vulnerability. But before I ask about that, what's the one thing that you've manifested that has surprised you the most that it actually came to life?
That is my daughter.
Hmm.
Yeah. Ever since I was a little girl, all I ever wanted to be was mommy. And
Mhm.
so everything that I've done up until I had her was in an effort to hurry and control and manipulate every situation to find how can I be a mommy?
Mhm.
um, from my friendships to dating relationships, then into my marriage, just really just wanting so badly to be a mommy. And um, really rushed many things on the road trip of life,
Mhm.
through just not slowing down to appreciate the journey. And, up until now, recently, I had been a very turbulent, feisty, stubborn, angry, person when things weren't going my way, or the way that I thought they should go when I was really at a truck stop. Uh,
Yeah.
just trying to stay at the truck stop and get the snacks from the vending machine and,
Mhm. Yeah.
you know, sleep in the car,
Yeah.
um, and all those things. And just efforting and wanting so bad, for that to be just to be at the destination. And I'm realizing that now. And uh of all of it, I'm just so thankful that I got my baby girl,
That's awesome.
and she's such a gift.
That is so awesome. Um, so stepping into the vulnerability part,
Yeah.
what does that part look like in your life? How is that playing out for you to do that part?
Yeah. So up until recently, maybe in the last year and a half or so, I was extremely avoidant of myself, avoided my feelings, avoided being with myself, rejected my own feelings and thoughts, and just would not be with them, would not allow them, would not feel them, would not process them because they were wrong. My feelings and thoughts were wrong, and they, you know, hurt God's feelings,
Mm.
or something to that nature. And now I'm learning that it's part of the human experience, and it's part of processing, and it's part of appreciating the contrast. Knowing what we don't want helps us to know what we do want. And sometimes we have to know what love doesn't look like so we can remember what love is. And so just really getting to know myself, allowing myself to be friends with myself and be with myself and accept myself in all of those, good, bad, and ugly. And just realizing that I don't I have to identify with those thoughts and with those feelings and with the situations that I managed to kerfuffle myself into.
Mhm.
That it's all feedback, and it's all for me to learn and grow and be, uh, inspired, and to be understanding and gracious, not only with myself, but then to be able to do that with others. Because without that, I'm an extremely judgmental person.
Mm.
I'm very organized. I have been, I'm very organized, but I have been, grown up being a perfectionist. Always having to have things in order and very, very clean, and, having to have having to do things in a certain way, and having to have things come about in a certain way, and having to have things look a certain way for myself. And then because through that, that would cause me to judge other people. Well, why are they doing it this way? Why are they like that? Why do they look like this? Why do they say that?
Mhm.
Well, what does that mean? What do they mean by that? What do they mean by this? Just that questioning. So being able to accept myself and allow myself and have the human being experience really creates this space, this that vulnerability creates this space to have genuine intimacy and connection with myself and with the world around me and with the people that show up in my life. And so I want, I'm committed to continuing to be vulnerable and honest with myself so that I can allow others to do the same and create that connection and that acceptance and that intimacy that will bring healing, that will ultimately bring healing and allow us to both express ourselves perfectly,
Yeah, I think
unapologetically.
if you don't have that love for yourself, it's very tough to love others
Yeah,
unconditionally.
yeah.
Um,
It's a practice. I mean, I can sit here and say all of this, and every day it is a practice. And I sometimes go up and down 300 times a day. But the point is to keep going and to not give up and to be committed and to be relentless.
have you your transformational journey in this aspect you said has been about a year and a half or so. Have you taken the time to go back and look at photos of who you were 3 or 4 years ago versus who you are now? And can you see the difference in your eyes?
I need to do that actually. I was just recently looking at photos from when I was pregnant with my daughter, and huge difference. Huge difference. Yeah. So I was very much so defeated in appearance and presentation uh, just a few years ago. And recently I decided that I have Kelsey magic and I get to own that and I get to love that and I get to share that.
Yeah, I
Very
think
recently,
there's
actually.
definitely a light that happens, and people, if they look for it, they can see the definitive difference when that transformation started, and it shines there. They say that, the eyes are the windows to the soul for a reason, because
Yeah.
that inner light glows differently when you have the things that you're currently talking about. And I'm just, always curious if someone catches it within themselves in past photos,
I'll
because it's
have to look
there.
at that. I'll have to look at that more closely. Um, I just finished writing a book, co-writing a book on forgiveness with my mentor, Novella. And so one of the most difficult things that I never thought would happen happened um, in 2022. And she was there and decided, asked me if I would assist her in writing this book on forgiveness. And it could not have come at a better time to practice this letting go and this surrender and this cleaning of the heart of just everything, really purging, to have the chance to create something new.
Is this book out now?
Yes. Well, it's going to be on Amazon, and it's in proof copy editing, proofing right now.
Mhm.
So we're working on it.
When's your due date?
I haven't heard an exact date from her yet, so but hopefully within the next month or so. But I'll let you know.
Okay. Yeah. Well, we'll circle back and reconnect the link to it, and that way people can, purchase it and read up on it. I think it's, again, another one of those divine timing things, because she asked you for help writing the book, but it really helped you reach your next soul level,
Yes.
so
Yes.
it was meant as much for you as it was for her. So,
Yeah.
you said your word for this year is limitless.
Yes.
How are you defining that
Limitless
for yourself?
for myself. Staying open to everything being possible.
Give me just a second. Sorry about that.
Very good.
The the door opened up for someone else to jump in.
Oh,
I had to
hello.
close that real quick. Sorry.
No worries.
We started opening up different portals.
Everything's possible.
Yeah, everything's possible. What does 2024 hold in store for you?
In store for me, 2024. Uh, Health, wealth, love, and perfect self-expression.
Are you
Uh,
going to mentor
continuous
somebody?
healing. Continuous healing. I don't know. Is that something that is possibly going to show up? Maybe. I don't know.
I think you're on a
Uh,
path. I think you're on a path for mentoring others,
okay.
sharing your story, and the more you express yourself and the more vulnerable you show, the more possibilities you'll show others. And there's some person out there right now who needs someone like you who can show them that it's possible, because you have a lot to offer and a lot of experience that it's a young life, but you've already lived a lot of life. And I think there's a pathway for you to help someone else get to where they need to go as well, because they will then mention you in the same vein you mentioned all those that came before you. So
It would be an
I,
honor to
I
serve.
just feel that is something that got downloaded to me coming to you. So I think
I
it's in
accept.
your I think it's in your cards. Before we
I
do wrap up,
thank
I am
you.
going to ask you one last question.
Okay.
What does having a warrior spirit mean to Kelsie Siegel?
Keeping my eyes on the vision, no matter what. Yeah.
I like,
And choosing life, continuing to choose life in every situation, no matter what. Uh, and I think that choosing life has a little something to do with unconditional love.
yes. And make that unconditional for yourself as well, not just
Yeah.
others. Yeah, I love
Yes.
that.
Yes. And so definitely one of the first things I say in the morning with my morning meditations is I choose life. I choose life.
I love that. That's awesome. Well, I appreciate your time, and you're such a joy and a pleasure, and you do bring such light and vibration to the room. So thank you for sharing it. And may 2024 be your best trip around the sun yet.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been an honor. I love the work that you're doing. Thank you so much for creating this opportunity to have conversations like this that encourage life and victory. So
Absolutely. And
Yes.
on that, I will say a small amen.
Happy New Year and wonderful, sweet 2024 to you as well. Thank you so much. Have a great night.
Thank you. Bye.